Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George-affleck.
And it's time for...
Do, 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 do. Unspun.
UnSpun. Oh, Alex Trebek.
A little tribute there, a little singing.
I love that.
Thank you very much.
You've always been a Jeopardy fan, I'm assuming?
Yeah, well, to show you how little I know. It's one of those shows like, I think I'm not I can't get any of these questions.
We have a tradition in our house. We've been recording Jeopardy for years. We record it on the PVR and we'll sit down. It's our binge watch. We love it. And when you get Final Jeopardy, you stand up and you dance. And my significant other, Brian, dances a lot. He's very, very smart, smart.
I tend to be the non-dancer if I were in that situation, for sure.
Yeah. But Brady's really taken to it, though. My kid likes it as well. I'll miss Alex Trebek a lot. Very proud of him being a Canadian and everything that he stood for and how he has managed and handled this awful diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, how he fought it, how he kept working. I mean, we still get to continue watching Jeopardy until Christmas.
Yes, and did you see the outtakes? They had there's some people tweeting today some outtakes of him. When he was, and he got a bit of a potty mouth there.
A little saucy,
old Alec.
Mm-hmm. And he would get a little.
All of us in the industry, we all swear a lot generally, and it's a lot of swearing in television.
A lot. It's almost like a game we play to try and make sure that we get all those words out before we get on the air. My biggest thing is like, just please don't let me swear today.
It's like when I said the bullshit cup of coffee on NW when I was a guest, and Mike Smith's like, "Oh, it's a family show." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I can't say those kind of words on traditional mediums here." Fine.
Yeah, you can say anything you want.
Got a little E beside us.
That's true, but in the Orca, we try and keep it real. UnSpun is all about going behind the pre-prepared sort of statement. We got a lot to cover off today, as we do always. But first, got to give people the reminders at George_affleck. I got followed by somebody on Twitter that it's the other George, and there was an underscore in the middle, and I'm like, oh, because that was kind of a thing that you were doing.
I went to George-affleck, that guy who's never tweeted since 2007. That guy,
probably that guy.
I found out on Twitter. Did I mention this, that I'm followed by Obama? I didn't know that till this.
You did? You told me. I don't think you mentioned it. That's cool.
Yeah. Come
on, that's cool.
It's cool. I have no idea why, but
I do, because you're brilliant. And that's why I love doing UnSpun with you. No, I do. I missed you when you were away. I had great guests. We're continuing on with UnSpun with guests because we got so many people we want to talk to, and there's so many people who want to talk to us. And apparently people are going to be able to hear more about you coming up as you join me in another sort of avenue. You can make that announcement here.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'll be hanging out at NW as a fill-in host on occasion. Just signed a little contract there. So I guess your training of me has paid off. So yeah, it'll be kind of fun. Just, a side gig for me. Obviously I run my business but I used to work in radio back in the day at CBC. So it's kind of like going home.
I'm absolutely thrilled, and I welcome you to the team, and everybody's going to be excited to have you. And now it's not just your phone ringing and you're a guest, you're actually going to get paid to do this. And sink your teeth into it. I'm really looking forward to hearing you do it. And I'm, sharing the load, as it were. We get busy. There. Let's talk.
The backup. You're the backup.
Hey, you and me on the bench, man. They're doing something right over there at CKNW. Glad to do it. So follow along at CKNW, obviously. At the Orca is where you find out all of your provincial news. Sign up for the Fin when you go to the orca.ca. You sign up for the Fin, that direct to email inbox, vital little the people are loving the Fin. I've gotten some people tuned into it and they're starting to share it amongst themselves because it's been so noisy. At Jody Vance on Twitter, that's Jody with a Y. So that's how you reach us. That's how you keep up with us and in touch with us in between times and in the meantimes. But we got to talk right here about a number of topics, and we're going to get a little heated on a couple of them. Let's start with the one that is definitely a global topic. It's a global pandemic, and COVID-19 once again stealing our top headline, George.
I bought 2 heaters this week just so I can sit outside with with my, whatever number of people I'm allowed to sit outside with now. It's very confusing, but yeah, it looks like we're cracking down on going backwards a little bit. It's a bit confusing, to be honest, but
I can help you with that.
I know your column this week was all about that, and it's yeah, I think it's important to know that one thing I think is great is that we know more about this thing than we did in March. So I think we can behave differently, but definitely, yeah, you just jump in and fill us in on your thoughts, Jody, because
I'll give you my thoughts, just in terms of in all of the, as you fill in on CKNW, you're going to find that you speak to a lot of scientists, a lot of epidemiologists, and you get to ask all the questions that you wish everybody had access to. And it's really interesting listening to the science behind it, as you said, like very much. And this isn't just Dr. Henry. This is like Jason Tetro, Jason Kindrachuk, Isaac Bogosh. Like there are this great Dr. Peter Hotez, who right now is like ranting on cable news networks in the United States saying, if we don't get a handle on this in the United States by the inauguration day, 150,000 more people in the United States could die because it's that out of control.
Yeah, it's over 1,000 a day, right?
Dying. Oh yeah. Yeah. Dying. Yeah, and here in Canada,
like two airplane crashes a day. If that were happening, I think we've talked about this before. I'm not sure if I've talked about this one, but that's a reference from my buddy Rob McDowell, who said, he's always much more serious about this maybe than I am sometimes. And he's, as far as how do we deal with it? How do we put this death toll in perspective? And he said, imagine if there were two airplanes crashing every day in America with a full load of people, and what would we be doing if that were happening? We'd be going crazy. We'd be going bonkers. And certainly administratively, you would be as well. It'd be, what is going on? We need to stop this.
We need to stop this. And when we bring it all back to BC, it needs to be noted on a couple levels. Check out my column in the Orca. Usually we finish off with my column, but this one, I really feel tired by it all. And I know most people are tired, exhausted. It's COVID fatigue. People are tuning it out.
100%.
It's like, I don't understand. It's too confusing. Why are schools open? Why do we have to shut down this and schools are open? And schools, I get attacked by people on social media for saying that I want my son to continue to go to school. Because when I listen to Dr. Henry, I hear her say the irreparable damage to children if schools are not open. And I get it. There's a whole conversation around that. Remote learning, people with underlying health issues, people with, compromised immune systems in the home and the multi-generational families. There's a lot of moving parts here, but we need community spread low so schools can be open. So with that in mind, what I'm hearing for this 2-week span is if you have any type of social plans at all, cancel them at all. Yeah. They're done. Not outside, not inside, no nothing. You can go for a walk with the people you live with. If you live alone, you can pick 1 or 2 people that commit to just being your family for the next 2 weeks, and you only interact with those 2 people. The caveats here is you still get to go to work, you still get to go to the doctor, you can go get your surgery done, or you can do the things that you need to do. You can still go to
before. You still go to restaurants, but you've got to go with your bubble or whatever we call it.
For 2 weeks.
We're already 1 week in. We're already almost 1 week in.
Almost 1 week in, George. We are literally just about there. And maybe it gets extended by another week because it took people a week to get it. But we know this virus works in 2-week cycles, right? It works in 2-week cycles. And we are in a doubling program right now. And once you start doubling caseloads, and it's a lag getting into the hospitals. I was watching the press conferences in Ontario and Quebec this morning, and they are freaking out. We're getting to the point where emergency beds are at 100% capacity with COVID-19 patients. That doesn't mean that people are dying on the streets like they are in Italy right now, in southern Italy. They're calling please, we're full. But what's the problem here is we're full. If our ICUs are full of people with COVID-19, that means if you have a heart attack or a stroke or you have something, anything happens, you can't access those services. So we have to just put that into perspective. That's what I think is happening here. It's like, everybody pause, just stop, because contact tracing is getting too difficult. We need everybody to just stay within their house for 2 weeks so that we can keep your contact tracing to, were you with George? Yes, I was with George.
And the good news is, right now, to stay inside, if you may have noticed, a lot of new TV shows launched on Netflix and Apple and everywhere. So it's like I got a whole bunch of new shows to watch. And so I think that if you're gonna hunker down in your home, all these great new shows that are on. I'm watching two. And
which ones? Tell me which.
Well, there's that one on the cults from Vancouver. That cult.
Oh yeah.
That one, and then the other is the chess one. The
Gambit. Something. Queen's Gambit. That's where I'm going next.
That's a good family one. Good family one.
Is it?
Yeah. Watching with Quinn. He's
good.
12 and he's into it.
Awesome.
And the documentary though, don't watch that with your kids.
Which one?
The documentary one about the cult. The guy.
Oh no. The guy that he got 120 years in prison, right?
And it's a 9-part documentary series. Just fascinating to see mind control and how this whole slippery slope into a cult, and it's fascinating. And so those are two ones, and a few other ones that are coming out in the next couple of days. I think Mandalorian is out, of course.
Oh, I'm watching Mandalorian. I love it. I love it.
Hugh Grant that's out on. That's a good one with Hugh Grant, and it's a really good one. I won't give anything away, but it's on. I think it's on Netflix or HBO. I have them all. So, but there's lots of good shows. So my point is, hey, you know what? Stay home. The weather's going to be kind of crappy, so just stay inside.
Couple weeks.
Get a bottle of wine. Hang out. Yeah. Relax.
I'm with you, and that's pretty much what my column. My column lists off the important pieces that you need, and it's consumable. To if you want to make it more complicated, you certainly can, or you can keep it as simple as this. Here you go, and share it with the people that you love, and say, how about we just do this for a couple weeks and try and tamp this down, and then look at that good last point on COVID for this week. The fact that we have some good news possibly on the horizon from Pfizer.
Yes, and in the Oxford one too. I mean, there's several cures that hopefully we'll see coming out of here. So as long as people take them, that's the challenge. Even polling my office, it's interesting.
Give me all of them. You give me all of them. I will take those. Interestingly, though, they do the list of who gets them first. Well, that comes. I would take all of them because Peter Hotez. You can. Really? You are. Yeah, because they all work differently.
Oh, wow.
According to Peter Hotez. Okay. He's like, it's all going to cause some sort of antibody immuno response. So you're going to build something in your body that takes the probability of it being a fatal illness for you back. Like that, we're still going to get it. We're still going to get COVID-19. It's just not going to kill us. It's like the flu shot. We need that to happen. And it'll be like people over the age of 80 with underlying health issues and long-term care home workers who get it first. And then it'll be, those same people over 70, over 60, whatever, you go down the list. And then it's like healthy people over 70. And then it's like healthy people over 60. Right. You and I are number 9 out of 10 on the list.
I'm 55 plus. I'm a senior now. I get my discount at Shoppers.
Yeah, no.
I do.
I know. You're 55. 55 is not senior.
Shoppers, here I come. I want my 10%.
Oh my God. While we're giggling and having fun, let me be Debbie Downer and talk a little bit about, or you can maybe find it funny, what we saw it on Twitter. Yes. The mayor today. Oh, dude.
No, he was doing a board of trade, state of the nation, state of the city, state of affairs. I don't know what it was. It was an annual thing that the mayor does for the board of trade, usually live, obviously in person, but this time it was on Zoom and they had some technical issues. As we just did, nobody saw them, but we were having some technical issues on our little end.
We're late.
That's the challenge with Zoom. No, it's like there's a whole bunch of stuff happening at City Hall, but it's all kind of like, bleh. It's just like,
well, going by the sort of notes that Bob Kronbauer did.
Yeah, thanks to Bob for live tweeting.
Thanks, Bob.
Unless you're a member of the board of trade, you can't watch. So yeah, it was interesting. I mean, there was one of the things was he talked a bit about mobility pricing, and he was kind of mad about it. I think it's interesting, the mobility pricing, which we know that we talked about this last week, the mobility pricing and this whole city strategy for transportation, and they were kind of putting a kind of mobility pricing in the city of Vancouver, which makes no sense because it needs to be a regional strategy or a provincial strategy, but no politician outside the city is ever going to do it. So it's one of those things that generally Vancouverites are open to mobility pricing because we're least affected by it because we live in the city that most people are coming to. But when you say you're going to do mobility pricing just in the city of Vancouver, obviously businesses are going, well, wait a minute. So that means people are going to be coming in. I mean, it has to be a shared strategy. But no, I doubt any politician, especially the NDP, because of they removed the mobility pricing with the tolls on the bridges. They are anti-mobility pricing, which means they're anti-environment as far as I'm concerned, because take away those tolls, you see what happened. Traffic went up, GHGs went up. It was a terrible decision, totally political. It won them the election, or got them into the last time, and now they're stuck with it and losing hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. But mobility pricing is just not a winner for politicians who oversee the suburbs. Those suburban people are just like, no way. And
how is it that we're even having the conversation about this? How does it hit the table? And I asked this in my naive, I really don't know the answer way. How is this even something that is being, that is taking up the time of day of our leaders? Yes. When we're in an affordability crisis prior to the pandemic? Now we're at like terror level. Oh my God, the mayor's already stepped up and said, we're going bankrupt, it's over. And then here we go. It's like, actually, we're going to charge you more. It's like,
this is the problem with it's being perceived as a tax grab in Vancouver because they need cash, as we know, because the city's bankrupt, and the mayor's not getting the 60 million. So they were looking at it as a cash grab, but also it's good for the environment. So, but you can't have it both ways. We talked about this last week. You either do it as a cash, neutral strategy, say, okay, everybody, we need to do this, but we're going to loosen up lower the taxes over here and raise the taxes over here. It's a cash neutral. You're not going to get paying more. But a lot of people argue, well, I already pay a gas tax. I'm already paying a tax on transportation. But then other people say, well, that's not fair. That's not the same thing. And it's about usage and all that stuff. So it's just one of those things that surprisingly people don't trust the politicians to do the right thing as far as how they're taking money in. And I think that's the challenge. In Vancouver, you're already seeing 12% taxes. Now you're going to say you're going to start charging for this and that. Now, what does that represent in revenue? And so it has to
without having that line by line budget transparency that you've been championing forever. Yes. Until there is that line by line transparency, stop it. Like this is like, we need the Auditor General that's coming in to go through it all, look at the books, say because on one hand, it's like we're going broke. And on the other hand, we're remodeling spaces that are perfectly fine, right? We're not managing the stuff that's dangerous in our city, the crime rates that are spiking, that people are waking up to like drunk people sleeping on their patio in downtown Vancouver now. Like people in their home lifts up a blanket, naked guy in the home. Like, what is happening? How are we talking about anything else? It was. I know,
and that takes us to the other thing that did come up, and it was the police have changed some of their strategies. I think the VPD has been going through a lot of mixed opinions by the public in the last year. Obviously, the defund the police movement. The VPD in Vancouver refused to lower their expectations on budgets. They said, no way, we're not cutting our budget, and not even we're gonna stay the same. We're not. This council, I think, asked them to reduce it by 1%, and they said, no way. So they've been facing some bad PR because it's simultaneously crime is going up, and they have data. Yeah. They released this data this week that crime has gone up in Vancouver. No surprise. Walk around, you can see it
exponentially.
Yeah, it did. Obviously, for the Vancouver politicians who ran in the last election, who brought this up to try and resonate locally, were slammed by people saying, "Oh, you hate people. You hate, it's crime. That's, it was like one of those issues. You're like, oh my God, it's happening." But it's a tough one politically because people think
it's a washing machine of whataboutism. Like you can literally not even say.
You have no heart. How dare you?
It's how dare you? Well, the problem is clearly that. It's like, well, we can talk about that in a second, but let's talk about this first. How do we help people? It's like, how about we don't have a war zone in Strathcona Park?
Yeah.
Just start there. Oh, but you don't have the mental health, and we got to find the thing, and we got to do, and what about addiction, and who's got homes, and what's going to happen, and people have the right, and to that. And it's like, start with the war zone.
The police did this week. They announced this whole strategy they had this, last week, I think we talked about it, the list of all the crimes, all these petty crimes.
Yeah. There was another one. Yeah.
And so they're saying we're going to have a portion of our police force are going to focus on that. Exactly. Of course. Yeah. Always. Yeah. Why weren't they before? Most people had given up even calling the police because, what's the point? It's like they even tell you, don't bother calling us about that petty crime. It doesn't matter. You're like,
right.
But this is how bigger things happen. If you don't take care of the little stuff, the big stuff becomes bigger, and then little stuff gets bigger. It's like you have to deal with this stuff, and you have to prioritize these things. And so the police have, and that's a good thing. And so I think that's one thing that we've seen this week that's fine. We're seeing the police, the VPD, saying, okay, we probably should prioritize those petty crimes, those things that we're getting more and more and more, like increasing by 60 to 70% year over year.
That's it. And that's why it's on us as citizens to report those petty crimes. But we don't call 911 to say our car got tossed. You got to call the non-emergency number. You got to wait in line. You got to get on the phone. You got to have all your information ready. And you got to say, hey, it's me again. My car got tossed again. What'd they steal? My sunglasses. Why'd you leave your sunglasses in your car? Because I'm stupid. Okay. Thanks for calling. Talk to you later. Bye. Click. And then they put another pin in your spot, and they start to see where these little crimes are happening. And then they're like, okay, we need to increase patrols in those areas on it looks like these days they happen there. Because the people doing this are repeat offenders.
Yep. You got to take the time for someone to pay the crime.
Oh,
right?
George.
Just totally pulling all these metaphors into one new kind of.
Oh, you're just bringing it all back. Okay, I want your opinion on this Olympic thing. What do you think?
Awesome. I mean, this whole Christine Boyle on City Council slamming it, saying, it's a ridiculous waste of our energy to be talking about this. But the thing is about Olympics, everyone, is it galvanizes a country and the world to inject money into a area. And if there's anything we need to get out of this economic crisis that we are heading into now as a result of the COVID crisis, is stimulus. And the Olympics provide stimulus. We are ready to roll on the Olympics in Vancouver with the facilities we already have. We can do this Olympics no problem in 2030. But we want to do is say, what we do need? We need a train out to UBC, and we need a fast train to Seattle, and we need, what else? We need highways twinned or something. We need the highway to Whistler done better. We need a train to Whistler. We need a better.
We need a train to the Valley, because we've got some new venues that are out in Chilliwack and Abbotsford, and they need to be connected quickly, high-speed train.
That's right. We need money for arts, for the arts community who benefit from Olympics. These are things that really, if we hadn't had the 2010 Olympics, you would have seen a completely different period of time after that, after the 2008 crash. It was only because of the Olympics that saved so many businesses in this province, the city, and that was all because of the Olympics. The infrastructure, the injection of money and energy, it changed us. And a lot of people say, "Oh, it made housing unaffordable." Well, yes, there's all that argument, but we would have faced years of decline if we hadn't had the Olympics in 2010. It was Sure on that.
I agree with you. I agree with you, George, in terms of the stimulus piece. And people do tie in the 2010 games and what happened after to the housing affordability issues, and kind of bring it together with the money laundering, because it all did kind of happen simultaneously, where there were many bad actors at play that had nothing to do with the Olympic Games. It just felt like it was all part of a bigger picture, and it's not. I mean,
if you owned a restaurant, or if you owned
a
communications company, if you owned any kind of clothing company, if you hadn't had the Olympics in 2010, that you wouldn't have been able to ride through that period. You would have faced what we're facing right now in Vancouver, small businesses and small businesses everywhere, is that there's just nothing happening, and the impact is significant. And so you have to. This is a great opportunity. The Olympics Committee are asking us to do it. I know it's 10 years away, but if it's 10 years away, and we're going to build a fast train to Seattle, that starts getting done starting next year, and that's all good.
Yeah, it's all good. Hey, fun fact, I'm not even sure if you saw this, but just yesterday I clicked accept all positions to go to Tokyo
next year.
Whenever they have the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, I'm going to be working for the world feed for just the 32 days. I'm going to fly to Japan and work in one of the venues. They said one of these 4 venues. I'm like, okay.
Doing what? Like just like broadcasting? Like what will you be doing?
I'm going to be a stringer, basically. I will be interviewing all the people on the podium at my venue and covering the stories and creating content that can be sent out to all of the competing athletes' home countries. So I will ask them questions in English, then I'll have them answer the question again in their native tongue, and then I will cut all those into little pieces and send it out. And then the reporters back in their respective countries will use that not my face or my voice, but those clips that I gather. So basically I'm producing kind of a stringer thing, but I get to go to Japan. So I was like, you know what? That's something to look forward to. I look forward to the Olympics as a former sports broadcaster, I guess current sports broadcaster as well, sometimes. There's nothing greater than the Olympic Games to cover. It's just, I cry at every medal ceremony. I marvel at what it means to young non-professional athletes to take part. It's special. And yeah, you know, there's politics behind it in the IOC and how you feel about whoever and doping and blah, blah, blah. Like, but come on, 2010 was magnificent. And every time I drive the Sea to Sky, I'm like, this is so much better.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was a great time. Fun. It was so much fun. And I remember the attitude just prior to it happening was so negative. There's so much negativity about the Olympics coming. And then just literally like the next day it opened up and everybody was all like, and there's something was like, oh my God, everybody's just loving the Olympics. You know, people were booing people in the street one day. And then like, as far as wearing the uniforms or the workers, people say they're on trains and they're applauding them. It was like, when they realized how much fun and positive this was. How
galvanizing it is for a community and how much pride we had when we were on the global stage, when we had Matt Lauer sitting at the top, sorry, you know, back then he was cool, but he was up on top of Grouse Mountain and I laughed because I'm like, they probably did that thinking, oh, this will be great. This will be awesome. Can you imagine the logistical nightmare of getting to the top of Grouse Mountain every morning? Oh, for that show, geez. Anyways, but seeing it so our city and our province and our country so beautifully represented, I got caught up in it. So, you know, let's do it. That's my take. Totally. So we're short on time. So we only got like 3.5 minutes here to go. So let's jump to Trump.
Yeah, awkward. I mean, it's, you know, if you watch Bill Maher, you watch these, you know, he's been predicting this, that he won't go. And, you know, it's just, I mean, they're doing a recount in Georgia, a hand recount, which is good. That's good, just to make
count them. Here's the thing that I find interesting, George, if I may jump in, because you know more about this stuff than I do. But obviously, Donald Trump wants counts to stop where he's ahead and wants to recount and throw out ballots that are wrecked in places that he is behind. But the interesting thing that we've learned in the last week about how people voted in the United States is people who were typically Republican voted for Biden for president and then voted Republican for the other names down the ballot. So if Donald Trump wants to start tossing ballots, the balance of the Senate and the House is very tenuous. Like this could...
The wisdom of the voter, you know, in Vancouver, the last election, you may recall that the voters voted basically the Green Party and the NPA. Didn't vote for Vision but voted for random people for mayor. Like they're all over the map for the mayor. I mean, people make decisions. I always have the highest respect for how the electorate make their decisions. You don't take them for granted. They're more strategic than you think. And in this case, they were like, yeah, that guy, nope. But the rest, yeah, I'm a Republican. I mean, America is very unique where you have this allegiance to your parties, whereas here it's, you know, we're more like, oh, this month I'm a conservative, now I'm a liberal.
Next week I'm a green. Yeah, I know. Yeah. So can I ask you about the Electoral College though? Like with Joe Biden now being whatever 4.5 million votes ahead in the popular vote, can this be so manipulated by the current administration with regard to the Electoral College coming together?
We'll solve it, right? I think that it's, you know, it's a bizarre system and you know, they don't, it's in a way, it's, you know, it's supposed to be based on population and based on, you know, all that stuff. And it's, more than often than not, the person with the most votes seems to lose. But in this case, he's won all the electoral, it worked, right? He's won the popular vote and the electoral colleges. So you could argue system works. It's kind of like the first past the post argument and versus, you know, versus proportional representation.
Yeah.
Well, you could argue certainly in the last 3 years that first past the post worked really quite well with Green Party, NDP had an alliance, and the Liberals are booted. They had the popular vote, but you know, people, you know, they managed to align something different based on whatever. And so, you know, and this time the NDP, I'm sure, loved the first past the post because they now have more than 50 seats and complete control of the House, of the legislature. So, you know, it's one of those things is like, okay, sometimes it doesn't work out the way it should, but more often than not, these systems, at least I think, in most Western industrial roles, whether you're a pro rep or you're first past the post, they also, there seems to be, for the most part, the first past the post system seems to be working quite well. But I think the electoral college is a bit of a, because they're gerrymandering all the time and doing all that stuff, which is something we don't do here. We have like Elections BC, for example. That's one of the interesting things in America, is the amount of politics involved in the process. Yeah. You don't have bureaucrats who decide on the process. You have elected people you have elected sheriffs, you have elected judges, you have elected dog catchers. It's very weird how many people are elected for all these positions, where here they're like,
in the name of democracy. Yeah. In the name of fairness.
But then you can argue that they're being political, and that's what Trump is doing. He's saying people are politicized, and therefore the systems. But you're part of that system, so you can't change the system. This is what you guys built your country on an electoral system for so many things that we don't vote on for here. Our judges are appointed. Our sheriffs are appointed. Our police chiefs are appointed. There, you get elected. It's very unique, and it politicizes everything. So, as a result, things get litigious like they will now.
So it'll get litigious until December the 15th, I believe, is when the Electoral College vote comes down. And then we look ahead to January 20th of 2021 at noon, because that is when Joe Biden becomes the president. And that's when somebody will have to climb over the wall and razor wire around the White House and drag Donald Trump kicking and screaming out of the White House. Is that how it's going to go down? I don't know. We have so many unspuns to do between now and then. We'll ponder the thought. So let's go home, stay home, stay safe, be kind, be calm, be brave, all those things.
Watch a bunch of cool programs and just relax, calm down. Stay calm and calm down.